basis once again.
So if you say this is tied to this changing of the Constitution, right? I mean, where's that process now? Is it on the table? I mean, there is resistance within the Philippines and within Philippine lawmakers too to it, right? So where is it in that process?
Well, in order for the charter change to pass, it needs to pass through the Philippine Congress. The Philippine Congress is comprised of both the House of Representatives and the Philippine Senate. There is a lot of resistance within both houses against the Cha-Cha. But I think the royal government, true to its genuine character, basically ousted both the leader of the House and the Senate because they were strong opponents to the charter change. And she's also bribing a lot of elements inside both houses to support the charter change. So basically, there's the biggest resistance is coming from the streets. There was a very strong movement on the streets against charter change, and what's happening inside the congressional halls right now is really up in the air, I would have to say, because of all the bribes that's happening.
That's actually what I was just about to ask you about. Aside from the resistance that's coming from within the legislative process, I'm really curious about the sectors of society that are the source of the strongest resistance outside.
Well, my group, Bayan Philippines, is a grassroots people's alliance that represents millions of Filipinos, so mainly poor Filipinos, poor meaning Filipinos who are from the far-flung regions, the farmers, and many low-income workers in the cities. But the opposition to the Cha-Cha really extends beyond Bayan. Or Bayan is sometimes seen and tagged as a left-wing radical group, but it's beyond the left-wing radical groups. It's really there are very definite elements of Congress, of the legislature that are against the Cha-Cha, that are also joining groups like Bayan out on the streets. And I would say also the church is a very strong opponent to charter change in the Philippines as well.
Today, President Obama, in his speech, made it a point to speak directly, as he said, to the poor nations, to people of poor countries, that there's going to be a change, there's going to be something different. Because Arroyo has been so aligned, President Arroyo has been so aligned with former President Bush, is there a chance for change? Is there a chance for something new happening? And if so, what do you think it would be? How do you think people will respond to that call?
Well, that was the reason why we were in front of the Philippine Embassy yesterday, because we wanted to present a platform for change that we believe in as Filipinos, both in the U.S. and in the Philippines, that we believe in, to President Obama. And I think, unfortunately, it got off to a disappointing start in a sense that shortly after his victory back in November, President Arroyo called him and left him a message congratulating him. And 4 days later, I believe, President Obama called her back, or President-elect Obama at the time, called her back and ensured that the Philippine government, the royal government, and the U.S. government under his administration would maintain, quote-unquote, good relations. And till this day, we still wonder what that means. We think that any, quote-unquote, good relations with the royal government is no relations, because the royal government has a lot of blood on its hands. And therefore, the Bush administration has a lot of Filipino blood on its hands. And we don't want the royal government to have that blood on its hands as well.
Is there another prominent figure in the Philippines now that people might see as an alternative to elect instead of Arroyo?
It's difficult versus the days of Ferdinand Marcos, when the clear alternative that everyone believed in was Ninoy Aquino. We don't have another Ninoy Aquino currently in the Philippines right now that can really be the champion, against the president. We have a lot of people from the church that are, standing up and becoming figures. But the thing is that right now, the people's movement on the streets is facing a difficulty because 2010 is election year in the Philippines, and many of these allies in Congress are going to be focused on running for the presidency. And so we hope that we can maintain our strong alliances against the Arroyo administration, but since most of their energy and their resources is going to be pulled towards their own campaigns, we just don't see any singular figure right now that can stand up against the president.
And we have a few minutes left, but one of the other things that struck me today in Obama's speech is that he seemed to be addressing more of a global community of people beyond these shores. And more we're seeing, and what we cover on this show as well, is that these communities in New York or across the country reach out to beyond the shore as well. In a struggle like this, which is in the Philippines, what is the role of Filipinos in the United States, and that relates to all different communities in the U.S. as working towards these issues that are based in other countries?
I think the biggest role for Filipinos and all other people who live here in the United States is to hold their policymakers accountable to their vision. I mean, President Obama really is victorious because, one, the people really rejected and hated the Bush administration. And two, the people were really ready for change. And I think that was the tagline of this whole victorious campaign, the change we believe in. And I think the time now that we have to do is really hold the administration accountable to that vision that it won on. I think history has showed us time and time and again that no leader, one person in history has ever been responsible for a major change in our society. The women's movement, the women of this country didn't gain the right to vote because of a president. They gained the right to vote because of a movement. And people of color did not gain their civil rights because of a president. They gained their civil rights because of a movement. And I think all people here in the U.S. have to build a movement. Basically, I think it's responsible of every single citizen in this country.
And if people want to hear more about the issues there and about the campaigns that you're working on, where can they go? How can they get more information?
They could go on our website, which is www.bayan, BAYAN, USA.org.
Great. Thank you so much, Berna.
Thank you.